Hi, this is Nick Lowry and my buddy Damon Cornelian. We're here at Windsong Dojo going to talk a little bit about hip throws today. The koshi waza. Now, the koshi waza developed from an earlier time in Judo, probably the 1930s, from some basic throwing ideas that we can identify readily as three main concepts. And the three big concepts that koshi waza came from, you can think of as goshi, uki goshi, and obi goshi. And we'll take a quick look at those three ideas and then see how that evolves into modern throwing forms of koshi waza. And just want to take a peek at the earlier forms and kind of describe what was going on at the time. So in the 1930s, apparently, you had a style of judo that was fairly jigatai oriented. Everything was kind of squatting down, and his posture's still upright, but we're down here and we're moving kind of like the Gargantua boys, you know. And then the hip throws would come in, and say, for instance, the goshi form, the hand would be solidly between his shoulder blades, and it would be happening off the action of his right foot forward, boom, right here, and my hand would reach under, come right between his shoulder blades. I would insert his hip and throw him over this long line. If you think about working on goshi, you don't have to do the squatty down stuff so much, but just work on, just as his foot touches, opening your own hip here, letting this right hand fall behind, and start seeking his shoulder blades at the same time. Keep his momentum coming right in the line of his step, and basically we're just trying to define an otoshi fall. So as he steps here and begins to fall in this line, his body's going into forward rolling break fall. And what we'd like to do is just insert ourselves with the hand here directly in that same line so that we're not interrupting the action of that forward roll. And that gives us the central idea of goshi, where it came from. The uki goshi was different in that when I would slip in to do uki goshi, and again we'll get down and do the old style thing, when his left foot would come forward here, as his left foot would come forward, I would insert deep, but my hand would stay down here around his abdomen, sort of across his lower rib cage and into this kind of pocket. So goshi was up here, uki goshi came low and around the side. And as that foot would slip forward, here comes the left foot, and I would insert, I would just jack my hip over and then roll him down the side of my body. And so it is a guruma type throw. It rolls in this fashion. Instead of throwing him over in the big circle, we're just bringing him up. His left foot touches, we slip through. As we make contact with our body, our hip rides over, just sort of stretching our own side of our torso, and we roll him off the side. Thinking about obi goshi was the third main form, and this is a form that's popular teaching the kids and whatnot. It's very simple because regardless of how he gets right foot, left foot, doesn't matter, he gets just square to us. We turn in place, we grasp the belt, in this case it's obi goshi, get a hold of his belt, bend the knees, tractor him up, throw him over. And you can throw him over otoshi style or guruma style, either way. That was sort of the basis of early koshi waza. And what was going on to define koshi waza at the time were those basic ideas. The style of reaching under his arm and coming to his back this way had a problem that developed as they did more and more randori and more shiai. They found that there was a big weakness in that as he's taking his step and I'm taking my step and I start to reach, I'm very vulnerable to him just deciding to lock my elbow. So if Damon reaches under my arm, for instance, and I come right here, I can lock it straight, or I can curl it all the way and cause him to pop up in the air a little bit. So very vulnerable to getting an arm bar, very vulnerable to coiled arm lock, or even straight arm lock as he reaches under here, like a hikiotoshi form. Both of that big vulnerability of exposing your elbow as you're trying to reach around the mat led to a development in judo of doing all the oshi, the hip throws, primarily working on this grip here, the surikomi grip. So surikomi goshi, like you see in the kata. Surikomi goshi has a high collar grip, and as the man steps, we're reaching down with our body, but we're leaving the arm kind of behind. We're making contact with the forearm, and then we're basically just throwing over the top like an ogoshi here. So the closing of this action, so you're controlling from collar grip and letting the surface of your forearm collide with his chest, and then replacing the action here, or the action here, with the action coming off of this grip here. Surikomi goshi position. That became the active style because it no longer had the vulnerability of getting your arm caught in those inconvenient places where the arm bars are happening. Once that happened, the whole body of throwing in terms of ashiwaza opened up, because now everything was operating at a greater distance and greater space out here, and things started to develop. So you started seeing throws becoming more popular, going into ranges like the ashiwaza forms and the throws like uchimata, for instance, as a leg reaping form, which was not really possible so much, or very popular so much here. But boy, when we're out at this little range, very nice, it fits perfectly. And so you started seeing a more open style of play, a more dynamic play. It wasn't just the guys stomping around so much. Now they were working more upright and fluid. Ashiwaza began to develop, and the other more dynamic throwing concepts started coming into it from this gripping form. As we think about doing our own koshi waza, it's a good idea to go back to the early basic forms of just reaching under and placing and doing our throw. Left foot comes forward, reaching through, placing, doing our throw. And even sometimes I would do the least of these, reaching and doing the obigoshi throw. But basically, you want to understand those principal forms, those basic foundational forms really well. And once you have them cooking in your system, off of the three basic foot relationships, he's either stepping forward with the right foot, stepping forward with the left foot, which is ukigoshi, or he's just kind of standard and squatting, and he's just stopping you, and you're just doing obigoshi in a flat kind of even-footed form. You get those three down, and you do enough repetition of that to have a good feel in your body. Then you apply it all, doing it from right here with your grip. You take the arm moving around his body out of the equation, and you do all three basic forms right from here. So as we make that translation, we have the right foot coming forward. As his right foot comes forward, we're going to open. We're going to let this arm collapse to us as our foot opens here and our hip opens. I just want to watch this action here. And I want to feel his center riding up. His weight hits his foot, my weight hits my foot, and his center rides up and starts to travel in this direction. As it does so, the next thing I have to be very cognizant about, as I'm traveling with him, is where I place my hip in relation to his hip. If I make an imaginary line down the center of his lead thigh right here, and I just try to make my hip square on that line, just squat right before it, that's my target zone. I'd like to make body contact right on the front of that lead thigh, and right down the split in my butt I would like to line it up just so. The second thing that I got to be cognizant about, foot hits, my foot hits, arm collapses, my center begins to travel over and my hip's going to make placement on the thigh, is that when am I throwing? I'm going to actually throw. My weight's now all on my left foot. As my right foot picks up and goes into place for the placement on the thigh, I'm going to be transferring weight from my left foot to my right. And I'd like to make sure that the throw is actually transferring energy into him as I'm transferring weight from the left foot to the right foot. Let's see if I can do that. Just so. Weight transferring, making the throw go. That's really important because we don't want to build our koshi waza, our hip throws, on any sort of squatting down lifting action. In the old days, that's what you saw. You saw people all squatted down, and he squatted down, and I'm squatted down, and man, I would just get down here and then pop him up in the air with my, and that's still basically the form that you see with obi goshi, for instance. But that form demands that your center of gravity stop traveling through space to do the job, and that is a no-no. You'd really prefer, and at least my preferences for dynamic judo play, if somebody's out there really hunting my head, I'd like to keep my center moving through space, even as I'm making the throw go. And so we try to only throw the hip throw as the weight's transferring into the lead foot. So that was the o-goshi form. Uki-goshi form, same kind of gripping function. This time the left foot is coming through. As the left foot comes through, I allow this to close. So normally I'd be stepping back here, and as I step back, I change my mind with my foot. We're right here. I let this arc action close, and I start to reach across just with my outside edge of my hip in this case. And my object is not to throw him over in the big line, but just to prop him on the side of my hip and take him off the corner, right off the side. So if I do this well, let's see, here comes the left foot. I've let this collapse. I've let my foot that normally was stepping back, it just sort of hesitates in the air and then changes its direction. Now, as it changes direction, my hip is going to slip over and just sort of accommodate the positions of our body. In the first case, I was able to step conveniently here. But now, as this foot hits the ground, it just has to bump over. And so it's a slightly different dynamic in terms of placement, but the dynamic in terms of weight is still the same. So this little action that touches him on the hip, rolls him off the side, it's actually a much quicker throw. Uki-goshi was Kano's favorite throw. And it is more dynamic because it hits them in the action of throwing in a very quick fashion. If I'm picking the man up here in this long momentum line that throws him in this way, they feel it coming for a little while. But with uki-goshi, when it's right, that left foot hits the ground, he goes for a ride quick. There's not a lot of preparation his body can do. And even in the air, he doesn't have much space to turn and get his feet back under him. And you will see that sometimes with the big form, the o-goshi forms, that you go for the throw, and they're a wrestler, and they turn in the air and land in front of you like Batman or something. It's really quite impressive. But you want to get those two basic forms down off of the lead right foot, the lead left foot. Then you want to extend that into side actions. So if we're walking sideways, let's face this way. And the man takes a step with his right foot. As he takes a step with the right foot, whether it's sideways right or whether it's forward right, we don't really care too much. We basically do the same job. As his foot goes sideways right, we open our hip and we let the forearm surikomi position develop right there in the pocket of his chest. And as it does so, my center begins to close. I keep his momentum going in this direction. And what do? I just insert and throw as my right foot hits the ground. Cool. Transferring weight, right, left to right. Boom. Throwing on the step. If the man's stepping left, here, we do the uki goshi form. And again, whether he's stepping forward left or sideways left, we don't really care too much. As he steps left, we begin to close and collapse the center here. And then we shift our hips straight over. So we get him kind of extended here, and we're looking for this sort of exciting ride for the man. We're stepping with him left, and on that left step we keep him pitched up right on our position here. As he starts to recover from this problem here, he starts to settle, our hip changes, and we go across the side. Now I changed my grip at the bottom, or at the top, while I was talking. I'll just leave it in place this time. So across we go. We set the man up a little as that's happening, and we throw him right over the edge here. Next, you want to practice a form in which they're stepping backward with the lead foot. And this is kind of interesting and really specialized. This goes to this particular demonstration will go to a question that's raised by a friend in Australia who's been asking. So, if they have their right foot stepping back, boom, here, we're going to go ahead and throw like a line of throw that's going to follow his foot. As his foot steps back, we're going to chase it with our lead left. And as we chase it, we're going to open the hips slightly. Right here. We're going to allow the elbow to come in and collapse. We're not pulling strong. We're just allowing this condition to close. And so we're basically extending that line of momentum here. And then all that happens after that, open hip, closed position here, is the back hip is going to come through. I'm going to align on the front edge of this thigh, and we throw uki goshi right over the corner. Could you throw an o-goshi there too? Probably. It just takes a little more time. But the action that sets it up is this following action. I want to follow his foot back. I want to invade his center with my center on this lead step. Hip opens. Over we go. Once you have the back step going on the right foot, say, well, what about a back step on the left foot? Well, when he takes a back step on the left foot, his body position is aligned as if he's just taken a front step on the right foot. So it's probably the easiest one of all. The man is stepping back on the left, and we just pull ourselves in. We just pull ourselves in and make our throw go to the side again. As his foot touches, this whole process collapses, and we just turn damn near in place. Don't have to travel very far to set this one up, and just step over here. That only leaves the moving in the large circular form. So doing it basically as an action to set up from them moving around you. So we have positions that are similar to what we see, for instance, when we're doing okuriashi arai, where we're stepping around. Or you see this also in this large stepping around action in nagi no kata for uchimata. But we're basically working off of an action that's translating a horizontal dimension in space this way. And functionally, all that is, whether you do it big or little, this is little, or if I do it big, like this, is just a left foot forward. So basically, we're just doing the left foot forward again. What was the left foot forward? His left foot hits, we throw the hip over. Same thing here. He begins to move, we throw the hip over. And there we are. Weight transfers, boom. Nice, easy throw. If they're traveling the other direction around us, we start to get this action going, for instance. Again, just momentum idea. It's a lot like the right foot coming forward again. So if he's stepping around here, there we go. Insert the hip, off to the races. So I hope this gives some clarity to what you're doing. It's really just the very fundamental ideas. And for all intents and purposes, you can sort of leave off the obi-goshi form, where you're doing the bounce up and down thing with your knees. Mainly because that's a specialized condition. Again, when you're first learning hip throws, probably a good idea to have it in your repertoire, but it's not going to have the growth potential in terms of affecting your throwing ability in a dynamic sphere that these other throwing conditions do. So if you apply this basic mechanism to your hip throws, I think you'll have a lot of success. Let me know, and if there's anything we can clarify, I'll be happy to do my best. So thank you, Damon. Nice.